Cyprian Ivanov, does Scientology have any measures to evaluate the success of previous efforts? How do they study their own history? Okay, good question, and an opportunity for me to talk about the data files. All right, so I don't know that I've talked about this ever, or maybe a couple of times, but in Scientology, in the Sea Org, you have a centralized computer system, which is basically a great big database, document indexing system. It's all been computerized. It used to be done and is still done also parallel with the computer system as you have files, okay, file folders that are kept in file cabinets for every single Scientology organization that is managed by Scientology, by Scientology management, which is the Sea Org. You have folders being kept for every month, and information, all the information from KRs to reports to statistics to certificates to local information, the org's magazine, everything that is coming, that the org is basically producing in terms of paperwork or records, copies of this stuff are being sent to management. Now, not every single invoice or every single little thing, but a lot. And in fact, if you wanted to, from a management position, you could get computer copies of all the invoices and information coming out of any individual Church of Scientology. So, for example, I was management for the Western United States. So the data files that we had covered all of the 34 organizations that I managed or helped manage in the Western United States, from Hawaii to Twin Cities to Kansas City to Austin and everything in between. And those data files were used by us managers routinely to find out what was going on in the orgs at the ground level. You could see the reports, you could see the statistics, you could get a picture of what was going on in that organization for any given time period. And these folders, like I said, were kept every month. So you could open up the file cabinet, pull out the data files for Seattle for March. And you open it up and there's March, and there's the org magazine, and there's KRs, and there's statistics, all that stuff. And the statistics basically tell you what's going on in the organization in terms of its production across the boards. And the data tells you why it's happening, what's going on, right? Or at least you hope it will. Some organizations don't send tons and tons of information, and they had pretty flimsy little data files. Other organizations where, say, there were Sea Org members on the ground doing their job as network people, keeping their, being the eyes and ears of management, those guys send up tons of reports and go around and collect the information that's necessary for the data files for management so we could manage the orgs, right? So that's this little system. These eyes and ears are down there on the ground feeding us information. We use that information to try to explain the statistics of the org and manage it so that the statistics will rise. That's basically the way the management system is supposed to kind of work. There's a lot more details, of course, in how to do the management, how you read the statistics and stuff like that. And as a note, by the way, learning statistics for real now in my university studies, I'm starting at square zero on that and just kind of building up a knowledge base of what are statistics and how does this work. And I realized that the only thing in common with statistics as they are taught in college and used in the big wide world and the statistics that are done in Scientology, pretty much the only thing that is common between these two things is the word statistics, because what goes on in Scientology is just numbers on a graph, and it's so simple, Simon. It's just down to judging, did the line go up, stay even, or go down? And if it did that, or is the graph trending up, level, or down over a period of time? That's as complicated a question as you're ever going to have about the statistics in Scientology. Okay, they don't run the numbers through statistical models and analysis. And I mean, there's so much information, raw data that they have in management that they don't do anything with. They don't utilize it. They don't do analyses that they could do of, you know, distributions of Scientologists or services, and how are these services panning out, what's successful, what's not. The way they figure those things out is much more primitive. It's much cruder. People who work in the Sea Org don't apply college level, you know, WOG tech to statistics or to running Scientology organizations. And of course, that's one of the reasons why Scientology organizations are so horribly unviable. Don't make money. Don't grow. Don't expand. Because they just don't know what they're doing. You know, once I started learning some statistical stuff, and I barely got my toe in the pool. I mean, I'm really a neophyte when it comes to actual statistical analysis. I'm just trying to learn enough to figure it out for, you know, research methods and papers and stuff I'm going to have to do. And I'm already like, man, this is complicated stuff. Nobody, even if they come into Scientology or the Sea Org with a background in that stuff, they don't use it in managing Scientology organizations. Instead, what they do is they use this data file system. And Hubbard described this whole system as the multiple viewpoint system. That's what it's called. Meaning that you are getting all these reports and information into these file folders from multiple points of view. The executive director's reports, the supervisor's reports, the auditors, the guy out on the selling the books on the street. All these staff members are supposed to be writing reports every single week and sending them up to management. How'd they do? How are their statistics? What difficulties did they run into? What was successful? How are they doing? Anything that management would want to know about? These are the kind of questions that are asked in the weekly reports. And every staff member of every single organization is expected to do a weekly report, ship it up to management. All the KRs that get written that week, you know, other kinds of reports that get written, finance reports that get printed out by the computer system. All this stuff goes into these data files, and so you have multiple viewpoints feeding it. And the idea with this is that by opening the folder and going through the reports, you're not just getting data, you're getting data from multiple sources. And so you end up with this kind of, you know, after a few hours of reading through these reports and looking at the statistics and analyzing where the organization's at, you get a pretty interesting and sometimes accurate view of what's going on there. That's not really how to manage an organization for viability on a long-term basis, though. But that's how Scientology does it. So I thought, you know, maybe I'll describe this in enough detail here in response to your question, Cyprian, that people can actually get some concept of why is it that management of Scientology organizations is so poor, is just so bad. And the system itself is a bad system of management, and that's why. But it does provide information and data and statistics, and it could possibly be modified to be a useful system. But the other thing, of course, about the system is it's always being cut off at the knees because of various factions that exist within this management structure who actually do battle with one another, and the multiplicity of senior people issuing orders to the managers. So they have, you know, crazy different priorities on a day-to-day basis. There's no calm, long-term, okay, let's just step back, look at this picture, and, you know, issue some orders that are going to sensibly get this organization on the rails. None of what I just said. That's not how it's done, right? It's frantic, it's crazy, it's phone calls, it's telexes, it's demands, it's quotas, it's, you know. So you have the data with which you could make a better picture, but they don't utilize it that way, if I'm coming across properly here. I hope I am. Sometimes I've got all this information in my head, and I'm trying to summate it in a way that you guys will get. And I don't know if I'm doing a good job on this one, but I hope I've given a little bit of a picture of what it's like to be a manager in the Sea Org and how, in response to your question here, they study their own history and evaluate their own successes. The other thing I'll say on this one, Cyprian, is also check out my podcasts regarding the data series, because you're going to want to know about that too if you really want to understand how the statistics and the data are utilized to evaluate the organization and come up with a plan of attack to make it better. That is the data series, and that's a whole nother subject, a sub-subject of Scientology. That's a kind of a difficult one to get your head around, but you might find it cool. All right, there you go.